It's Monday night. It's 8 o'clock. By the power of Grayskull, we have finally done it, folks. We are finally at the end of Masters of the Universe March Madness. Tonight on Play for Keeps the show, we have the one, the only Tim Sheridan with us tonight. Now, I usually say, Mickey, play the intro, but it's my turn to push the buttons.
By the power of Grayskull. I have the power!
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to finally wrap up our phenomenal March Madness of Masters of the Universe. And is with me, as always, he is the He-Man to my Skeletor, and I've been waiting all freaking month to say this. He is the voice of Nerd Initiative. He is the one, the only, Mickey CWK Smith. Mickey, what is on?
Fabulous secret powers were revealed to me the day I held aloft my magic sword and said, how awesome was that intro, man? Like, I'm pumped right now. Like, I'm ready to go, dude. This is exciting. It's the finale. It's a sad, exciting night, right? But I'm ready and I'm here.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, as you saw in the intro, because Mickey does all the intros, we have a phenom of books and comics and producing and writing and stuff. He is an awesome writer. He is a friend of the show. He might as well just at least, take up residency with us. We have the one, the only Mr. Tim Sheridan with us. Tim, how we doing?
Woo! Woo! Tim Sheridan!
Oh my God! Yeah, it's Tim Sheridan.
Oh my God! That Mickey, you're not kidding. That totally got me pumped. Like that, is that not the greatest? Like I love that song. I love Bear McCreary so much. I love that intro, or the animators, everything they did, just like gets you so excited.
Best He-Man transformation ever.
Yeah.
Now, as I said, we might have had something else. Now, Mickey, I don't know if you're paying attention off the side of the screen there.
I got eyes. I saw it.
You got eyes. So this is a present for you, Mickey. Tim and I have been working on this. We actually were able to get a few other folks from Masters to show up. So let me bring on this evening Mr. Teddy Biaselli, who is you.
Ted Biaselli.
Ted Biaselli, also a fellow Philadelphian. Go Birds.
Ooh,
executive producer.
Are you still there? Are you still in Philly?
No, I'm up in upstate New York now.
I was just back in Philly in June of last year, and man, that place has changed. That place has changed.
Yeah,
I'm going there for the first time next month. I'm going to go there for the first time. I can't wait.
Yeah, give me
Do you
a
know where
shout.
you're
I'll give you
staying?
some ideas.
Not yet.
So let me get.
You haven't introduced Teddy. Teddy, executive producer of Masters of the Universe, Revelation and Revolution, and voice of Gwildor himself.
Woohoo! There you go. See, there it is. Now it's up on the screen.
Good.
Teddy, thank you so very much for joining us. I mean, it is an absolute pleasure and honor, considering you two are of the as Kevin Smith's called the triumvirate of writers on this whole project. It's just so much to just take in right now. So let's get started out with. Well, come on, man. It's like, hey, can you do me a favor? By the way, I got this person to show up. I'm like, yeah, okay. And I know Mickey was not expecting this nearly at all, and he's just way trying to keep his cool.
Yep.
It was a surprise to me too, Mickey. I honestly,
Okay.
it was literally like a second ago. Tim was like, "Hey, here's a link. Hop on," and I was like, "Okay, what?" No.
Nice.
I'm just happy that nobody's asked you to do Gwildor yet.
Thanks a lot, Tim.
We don't
Hey.
dance monkey dance. If you
Yeah, we
want to
don't
do
do
the
that.
voice, you do the voice. We don't
Right.
force
That's
you
right.
to
Because
do
then
it.
I would make Tim do the voice of King Miro.
Oh, that's right.
With my little cameo as King Miro.
All right,
That's
so
right.
now you did the voice of King Miro. Good job.
That was basically it. Yeah.
So let's get started off with how exactly did you guys get involved in this project? I mean, you know, it was how many years since we had the last series, since, you know, which we've already talked about here on Play for Keeps 2 weeks ago, because we did She-Ra last week, which I know, Teddy, I hope you go back that episode. I know you huge She-Ra post earlier this week.
Yeah, so this actually started. I had a Comic-Con meeting with Rob David from Mattel, and I worked at Netflix.
That's not how it started. That's not how it started.
How did it start?
Mickey, just sit back and watch.
It started when you were a little boy in Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it started when my mom met my dad.
And she saw his cosmic key.
Gotcha. Exactly. Rob and I had met at oddly enough, the Masters of the Universe Power Party at Super 7 in San Diego. And we just kind of like clicked and we said, hey, wouldn't it be fun at some point if maybe we did something together? And then the next year at Comic-Con, we had breakfast and we started talking about the thing that we always wanted to see. We were like, man, wouldn't it be great if we could just like do, you know, episode 131? Like, let's just do the very next episode. What would be what the story we want to tell? And we said, how wouldn't it be great if we could like pay off all the things that we, you know, the original series planted? Like, will Teela ever find out that Prince Adam is He-Man? Will she ever find out that she's supposed to be the sorceress? Will Skeletor ever get control of the Grayskull? Will Evil Lyn ever, get one up on Skeletor? And we were like, we started putting all those things out there. And we said, wouldn't it be great if we could tell a story that literally did all that? And that's how it happened. And then I took back to Netflix. He took it back to Mattel. And then everybody said, yeah, let's do it.
But the thing is, the important piece of that puzzle that I think everyone should know, and hopefully by now, maybe they've heard it a million times, but that's like, we were children of the 80s and, you know, we grew up with this stuff, but no one, I think, more than Teddy Biaselli, who may be the world's greatest MotU fan. And you know, so this was
we don't qualify fandom, Tim Sheridan.
I qualify you. That's what I do. And I think that to know that this show came about because of people who just absolutely love Masters of the Universe and have loved it their entire lives and wanted to, you know, do something to keep that canon alive and add, you know, some things to the canon. And you know, that's where it came from. It came from such a place of love.
Now, considering that, you know, we did want to always pay off on a lot of these stories, you know, I think that there's something else that was equally as important. You know, MotU has always had all these fantastic characters. And when you guys started with Revelation, we added a brand new character to the story and everything. And I believe they might be available now. So let me, the one and only Tiffany Smith. Hi.
Hi.
How are you? Welcome, welcome.
Welcome to the show.
I'm
So,
so
Mickey,
happy to be
how you doing?
I'm all right.
Dazzled by your beauty, I would say.
Take a breath, Mickey.
I'm trying.
Mickey, do you have the fan on?
Voice of Andra, yes. Lieutenant Andra, who, by the way, not exactly a new character, though, right? Ted?
Nope.
Yeah. So I like the audition process for this character was crazy, but yeah, I knew about the character from the comics originally. There's like a photo of me. I was sitting in the waiting room listening to you guys chat. And as a child who grew up with the show and loved it too, I loved watching Saturday morning cartoons. There is a elementary school photo of me with a Mermista action figure in my class photo.
Cool.
because I was like so obsessed with her and the characters from that world. So my mom jokes now that she's like, you manifested this, that you were going to end up a part of this universe from like being a little kid. So I'm so happy to be a part of it and be here chatting with you guys.
Well, it's our absolute pleasure too. So, Mickey, what do you got for questions, sir?
Oh man, you're gonna put me on the spot. Okay,
Of
so
course.
yeah,
Good job.
I can't believe Tom ran out of questions that fast.
I know, right?
I think he asked maybe one question, maybe one and a half. That's it, Mickey.
No, I've got plenty. I'm a professional. I just wanted to put Mickey on the spot.
Well, all right. So I had already kind of thought about it today since I thought it was just gonna be Tim, but that's okay. Land of the Dead is my favorite episode.
Oh, really?
Big Orko fan. Big fan of Orko collection. So that was a really special episode for him. I felt like him and Evil Lynn. And that was the one you wrote, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So where did it come from? I see, nice Orko. Where did the inspiration for that come from? Because Orko has always been like a buffoon, and was that you saying like, I want to give him his moment to shine, like, or did that just come naturally like that?
Yeah, I mean, that was something that we talked about. We had sort of an ad hoc writers' room where the writers, Eric Carrasco, Dia Mishra, Mark Bernardin, myself, Kevin Smith, Rob David, our producer from Mattel, was there for all those meetings. Teddy was in the room as well, and we were, we talked a lot about where we were going to take these characters, and I think Orko was one that we talked in terms of like, there was a lot of Orko hate out there. A lot of people looked back on Orko and thought, oh, Orko's annoying. And there's not a lot of dimension to that character. And how are you going to really age up everything in this show and make the stakes bigger and make it feel Shakespearean, but still have a character that can be seen as you say, a buffoon. And so that was just something that was always kind of circulating in the room when we talked. What's interesting is that of all the first 5 episodes, so our first meetings that we had, we broke the story for those first 5 episodes together. But the one we really didn't touch much was episode 4, Land of the Dead. And it was sort of like we kind of knew the broad strokes. We knew that it was going to be about getting a piece of the sword from Subternia, and we were going to introduce Scareglow for the first time in on screen, and so that was very important to everyone. I think those were the main key points that I went into it with. When it came time to dole out the stories to which writer was going to tackle which story in those first 5, Kevin Smith said, "Okay, what do you want, kids? Like pick an episode." And I said, just because I don't know, I felt like it was going to be a melee. Like I just felt like I will take whatever is left over after everyone else picks, because I love all of them. And I feel like I could, have a great time writing any of these. And the last one still on the table was Land of the Dead. And I can tell you how happy I was, because we had done so much work on those other episodes, but we had left so much to still be done on Land of the Dead. So I thought that gives me freedom to go off and play with the toys how I want to play with them, just for a little bit and see what happens. So special appearance by Loki, by the way, we just saw there.
Absolutely. Hi,
Loki. And so one of the things I really thought was exciting was putting, like I did when I was a kid. I never saw scenes with Evil Lynn and Orko. So let me put those toys together and see what happens when they talk to each other. And some cool stuff came out of that. So that's kind of how it all happened.
That's awesome.
Beyond cool. It's my favorite episode too, Mickey. I love that episode so much.
Let me just give a shout out to one of the writers who's not here in the room with us, but Eric Carrasco is a very good friend of mine. And he was somebody I knew before going into the work on this show. And, Eric and I would trade our scripts back and forth, and he's so smart. And he was the one who identified in my first draft that he said, what you need here, what you're missing from this episode is sort of a monologue, maybe, or a soliloquy, something from Orko to make us fall in love with him, before the tragic ending that, spoilers, he's going to meet. And I didn't have that in there. I had some dialogue, but it wasn't just a really solid character monologue piece where you really got under his skin a little bit.
Yeah.
And it was the best note I think that episode could have gotten, because it just did everything that we were hoping, I think, it would do, which is sort of make you look at Orko in a new light and realize, oh, maybe he's not a buffoon. Maybe he's kind of like all of us when we're kids and we feel like we're not taken seriously and we're messing things up, but we have hearts of gold and we're trying really hard, you know? So shout out to Eric for giving the best note we could get on that episode.
And a big shout out to the annoying trollin that he is, Mr. Griffin Newman.
Oh my God.
Who, I mean, when I tell you that guy cold texted me, he got into my DMs on Instagram and said, "Hey, I hear you're working on a Masters of the Universe show. I'm trying very hard to lobby for the role of Orko." Shameless, absolutely shameless, that guy. And I'd known him from The Tick as Arthur on The Tick. I watched The Tick, and I was like, "Oh, that guy's pretty fun. Oh, maybe he could be Orko." And he's like, "Hey, I'm going to be in town. Can we grab like a half an hour?" And it turned into like a full hour meeting where we both just nerded out and realized that we were like, you know, it's at some point in alternate timeline, we were the other person. And we just had such a beautiful symbiosis and camaraderie that we were like, oh man, this guy needs to be Orko. But he auditioned like everybody else. And he brought such beauty to that voice and pathos, and he just brought his lines to life
without mechanical affect. That was the wild thing. He insisted on doing the voice for real, so that if a kid ever walked up to him on the street and asked him to do Orko's voice, he could do it.
That's awesome.
Which is forethought that I would never have, and I just think that's really incredible. It speaks a lot to how he went into this. You know,
he's a good egg. We like him.
Yeah.
Now, as I was doing my homework, I know, Teddy, speaking of voices and whatnot, and again, I'm not going to poke the bear to make you, talk like Gwildor. You already have some credits, doing some voices. What was it like? Did you know that you were going to be Gwildor, or did anybody else insist, or you just couldn't find the right person?
I actually moved out to LA to do voices for cartoons. That's what I thought my job was going to be. I thought I was going to be a voice actor. So
look where you are now.
My mother would tell you, "Oh, he's going to do voices for cartoons. That's what he's going to do for his whole life. That's it." As Tom knows, that's my mom's Philly accent. So I was very blessed when I first moved out here. I did a couple commercials. I got my SAG card. I was Taft Hartley'd right away because I booked a Tide commercial, and I wasn't SAG, and they made me SAG for a commercial. It was crazy. Never happens. And then I booked a bunch of anime stuff. I did 90 episodes of the Stitch anime cartoon, where I was Pleakley. And then I just kind of fell into the executive route, and I was like, oh, I don't have to audition. Oh, I can make a lot more money. Oh, I don't have to be suffer rejection.
Hey, don't rub it in.
And then every now and then I would get a call from someone who was working on a show who I knew, like Ciro Neely and Brandon Allman, who did the 2012 Ninja Turtles series. We all went to college together in Philly, University of the Arts, and Brandon was like, "Dude, I can finally get you on Ninja Turtles. You're gonna be Scumbug." And I was like, so you get those calls, and those are like, "Oh, that's awesome. I get to play again. I get to do something really fun." And then in the original pitch out for Revolution, Tim and Kevin were pitching it out, and they're like, "Okay, so we're gonna have to augment the sword to use technology," and they take it to Gwildor. And I went, "Oh, I'm not a Tarkin, I know who Gwildor is." And Kevin was like, "Well, we found our Gwildor." And I started laughing, and I was like, and then I started thinking, oh my God, who can we cast as Gwildor? This is going to be great. And months go by, we get the scripts, all of that. And then Kevin says, "I was serious. You're going to be Gwildor." But now that I'm working at Netflix, it had to go all the way up to the top to get approval to do a voice in a show that you work on. Cause it's not really, kosher. Like it's kind of like, oh, you're stacking the deck against, real actors who are out there and making a living. And it had to,
It's totally fine if you're a consulting producer, though. That's no problem at all. It didn't have to go really anywhere.
But that, it had to go all the way up to get approvals. So I was very, very grateful for that opportunity. And it was honestly, it was a dream come true. As a kid playing with toys, here I was getting to be one of those toys.
Now let's be honest. Your mom would have probably said, "Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you go down to Tap Mac and then go down to the store and give me some Koopa Shop, and then when you're done, get some water ice."
Yeah, you got to Tap Mac. Nobody knows
Oh,
what that
Lord.
means. Tap
Nobody knows what Tap Mac is.
I don't know what's happening at all.
Yeah, sorry. Our Philadelphian came out, and you got to get the good Amoroso rolls. You can't get the Johns from Wawa.
No, because they don't use the right water. They don't use
Water.
the right water in LA when
Water.
they make the rolls.
That's right.
Hey,
Now,
I have a question. I'm not a
Please.
moderator, but can I ask a question?
dude, I told you, man. You can take up residency here. Just go for it.
I
We'll
have a
move you to the
question
middle.
for the actual voice acting
For the
people
real
here in
actor.
the room, the real actors. For both of you though, Teddy, did you record in a sound booth, or did you record from home? Because remember, and Tiffany, the same for you on Revelation. I don't remember. I don't remember what we did on those, because some of them were recorded in the booth, and some of them, because of COVID, we all were doing like from home recording. What did you do, Tiff?
My list there.
What about you, Tiff?
It was on my list.
You were in the booth. Tiffany?
I had one session with Susan Eisenberg and a couple other actors. It was my very first session for the show. And then it was the pandemic and didn't have another session with other actors. Towards the end, actually, no, the whole time. I had one session with other people, and then every other session was just me in the booth by myself, and we had to do all the wiping everything down, coming in with your own stuff, and then everyone was on Zoom, which was kind of great, but also for me, this was my first time taking a character from the beginning of a season all the way through an arc. So I was blown away just to get to be in there with some voiceover icons and seeing the stuff that they did. And, we had Colette Bennett Sunderman, who's our voice director, and there was stuff that would happen where it's like, she's like, okay, so first you're going to jump off this plane, and you're going to land on this other thing, and you're going to fall on the ground, and then you need to get up and shoot things. And I'm like, so she would do it, and I was like, oh, okay. And that's one of the things that I love doing as an actor, when you get those moments to be able to be like, oh, I can do that. Like, I'll watch TV shows and just practice accents as I'm watching. So that was something that was a big learning curve for me. But I remember on the first day, I left the studio and I was like, I'm tired. I don't know what I'm doing. And it was just that feeling of, imposter syndrome, where you're in there with voice actors that have been doing this for so long, and they're so incredible at what they do, where it's just like you can hop in and out of different voices all the time. And it's something that I've luckily been able to pick up along the way. And I remember after we finished recording the first day, I messaged Susan and I was like, hey, can we have lunch together? So we went to lunch and talked for an hour and a half. And I was like, am I horrible? Did I do anything wrong? She's like, I would have had no idea that this was your first time in a booth with other voice actors. So it was really encouraging to get that feedback, but also just to learn that everyone has those feelings. Even the veteran voiceover actors, when they're going in for a new show, where it was Susan had recorded stuff, and when she came in was thinking she was going to have to do some kind of a voice, and they were like, no, just you. So it was incredible, and I feel really, really lucky to have gotten to do it. And I remember you guys were talking about Griffin earlier, and I was like, we did the Masters of the Universe convention together, and we were the only two that were there because it was tail end of the pandemic, kind of. And it was so awesome to get to meet some of the fans and hear Griffin do the voice in person, because I didn't get to hear him do it in person, just on the show. So yeah, I saw you guys all in there with your action figures, and I had to go get mine too.
Still in package.
Right. That's right. You and Griffin were the ones that came to the PowerCon right after part 1 of Revelation had launched, and that was great. It was so awesome to see you guys get so much love at PowerCon, which honestly, I miss PowerCon. I loved it. I've been going since the very first one at the airport Sheridan by LAX. And it is such a beautiful community of MotU fans that were there. And it was so great to see so much love, because the reception to part 1 was a little mixed, to say the least, and
What?
and getting nothing but love at PowerCon was unbelievable.
Well, and I remember, I feel like, Teddy, you even said to me, you were like, before I went or after we talked about it, because you were like, how was it? And I don't read a ton of stuff online about certain things, because I know that there's going to be people that don't love it. There's going to be people that love it. But as an actor, and just for my own mental health, sometimes you got to avoid it, And so for me, it was like, I knew there was stuff going on, but the convention was incredible. It was so sweet to see like fathers and their daughters coming up being excited about this new character. And for me growing up, it was like, I watched X-Men and saw Storm, a character that looked like me. And so getting to have a character that looks similar to me and getting to voice her was just such a treat and such a gift. And so it's like, I think anytime you do something publicly, you kind of have to take the good with the bad in some ways. And this was one of those times where I was like, the good so outweighs the bad. And everyone was so lovely and kind. And I was like, it was so fun, because I'm a huge Disney person too. So it was like, I went to the convention and I went to Disneyland.
Guilty. I did that for Power Morphicon this year.
Speaking of PowerCon, can I say something about our friend Kevin Smith for a second?
What a time! And he's coming right now. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I know. I wish.
Did you ask him?
I mean, I call him every day and ask him to hang out with me, and this fell into that, so I don't know. So when the show, but I have to sort of lay the foundation here, and you have to understand this never happens. What I'm about to tell you is something no one ever, I think, has done in the history of television. But when you, Teddy, when you were announcing the show Revelation for the first time at PowerCon, there was going to be a panel at the show, and Kevin texted our text thread for the writers. We had just gotten started. I don't think we'd written a word yet. We were just all like getting started, and he said, "Kids, come over. Pile into the SUV. I'm going to drive us all down to Anaheim, and we're going to introduce the show." And we were like, "Oh, okay." So we all dashed over to his house, piled into his car. He drove us down to Anaheim. We all got into the room. He goes up on stage with Rob, David, and Teddy Biaselli, and they announced the show. And almost immediately, Kevin says, "And here are the people who are going to be writing it." And he introduces us individually, brings us all up on stage, sits us down, and asks us questions about what we're doing and how, who we are, and introducing us to the world. And you never, as a writer on a show, you're mostly blending into the background, if you're lucky. And he was just so generous right from the start. That's how the whole process was with him from beginning to end. There we are. Teddy's holding up a photo of us at PowerCon. That's how it always has been with him. Just absolute generosity like that. And I'm grateful that I got a chance to work with him on this.
Well, I think that's something that speaks to Kevin's, the way he came up in a very grassroots style, and he understands it not only from behind the camera, but from behind the pen. Now, we do have some of our writing team here, but I believe that there's also a new writer on here in our presence, just recently announced. Miss Tiffany Smith is going to be writing the brand new one-shot for Dark Horse Comics.
Congratulations.
Congratulations all around. And trust me, I'm going to use this as my platform. Dibs to the comic book bullpen. I'm doing that one. Well, I'll do the video one. You do the written.
I'll do written.
There you go. Because we love covering as much as we can, especially for all of our friends. So how did this happen?
Man, I'm so excited about this. I grew up reading comic books, like I said, watching cartoons and reading comic books. And, I moved out to LA and started working for DC and Marvel and getting to talk to all these writers. And so it's always been kind of on my bucket list to one day write something. But I think because I've been around so many talented writers, it was so far off that I'm like, oh my God, I don't think I can do this. Like, is my comic going to be good? And Tim will report that he got many phone calls during the writing process from me being like, I'm going to quit. I'm not doing this. I can't do this. Can you just write it with me? I don't know what I'm doing. But he was so wonderfully supportive and just kept reminding me that, yeah, you can do this. You are doing this. And the best piece of advice that I think he gave me the one day was just like, just sit and write. Like, stop overthinking everything. Because I literally would sit there and be like, well, no, this happens and this needs to happen. And this happens and this needs to happen. Because it's so special to me and I didn't want to mess it up, you know? I was having a chat with Rob David, and that's how this came up, was that it was during the pandemic and the strike, and we were just on a Zoom where it's like, how do you catch up with your friends? You sit on Zoom. So he and I were chatting, and he's like, well, what other stuff do you want to do? And I was like, well, I want to do more voiceover. I love it. It's been so fun doing this. But I was like, at some point I would love to write a comic too. And he's like, what about you write one about Andra? And I was like, okay. And then I got off the call and I was like, oh my God, am I actually going to write this? And so kind of started toying with some ideas and talked with Tim a bit, and then sent in a one-page pitch of the idea, and they said yes. And the rest is kind of history. And, you know, it's been a journey and still in the process of finishing up the book that I'm so excited and can't wait for everybody to read. It's going to come out July 25th, which is perfect timing because it's San Diego Comic-Con.
Comic-Con.
Yeah.
I think like Andra too, like it's interesting because Andra was a character that I think there were some people who, you know, there were, you know, if you look at the internet, there's people who misunderstood Andra, and there's people who, you know, were excited to have a new character, but, you know, because it's Masters of the Universe and there are so many characters, you know, Andra doesn't get to take the spotlight all that much in the show. And so if she's your favorite character, you know, you're looking for more and you're hungry for more. And I think the comics give us a great place to do that. You know, Teddy and I did the Revolution tie-in comic book, and I got to work on the Revelation comic book as well. But a character like Andra seemed like the absolute perfect, there they are, seemed like a perfect character to explore some more. And when Tiffany said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this Andra book, I said, well, yeah, because nobody literally knows Andra's voice better than you. So it makes sense. I feel like you are the only person who should be telling that story. So
and I think it's going to be really cool for even if you've only known Masters of the Universe or only known Andra from Revelation and Revolution, it's going to satisfy you because it's a great new story for Andra. If you are a longtime MotU fan, wait till you see how Andra truly fits into all of the continuity. It is, I mean, honestly, it's great. And by the way, it was by design. When we originally started talking about Andra, we started talking about her ties and her connections to MotU, and there was stuff that didn't make it into the show that we wanted to explore as well. But you know, you're going to see all the connectivity. It's like she's been there the whole time.
I don't want to give away too much, but this is already out, so we can say Count Marzo is in this comic, which was just so much fun to get to play with that character. I'm a huge fan of magic in general, and getting to do and play with some magic in that space and how that plays in with Andra's work with technology is so much fun. I literally, as Teddy was talking, I was like, what's he gonna say?
I'm not gonna say any spoilers, my friend.
I'm still learning this process.
I looked to make sure what was revealed and what was not revealed, and I'm like, all right, we didn't say anything about that, so I'm not talking about that.
Well, and even that has been really fun because so the cover and the announcement of the comic book, they put it in the solicits in Canada first, so it came out before it was supposed to. So I remember waking up one morning and being like, oh my God, it leaked. I didn't know we were announcing this yet. What's going on? And what was so nice about it, though, was seeing the positive reaction that people had to that coming out. Just hearing that there was a comic coming, which was so encouraging to me and so much fun to then go back to Dark Horse and everybody and kind of say, okay, well, this is out and the response has been good. So let's use this and keep that train going. So it's just been really, really fun. And for me, even getting to voice the character, like the audition process, just kind of talking about Kevin and everybody working on the show, where it was, I got the audition. I've worked with Kevin as a host before, but I got the audition through my voiceover agency, auditioned for it, and there were actually both of the Masters of the Universe shows were auditioning voiceover at the same time. So I auditioned, and then I got we need you to record again. And I was like, oh my God, like I knew some of the writers on the show, and I was like, oh, I don't want to F this up. Like, I hope I'm doing a good job. And so I submit, and then I got a call from Kevin, and he was just like, so you're going to be Andra? And I was like, and he later told me, which I was like, I think for any person that is any creative space, you want to know that you got it based off of your talent and your skill. And so Kevin was like, I just want you to know that Mattel brought you to us and said, hey, this is who we like for Andra. And he was like, it's Tiffany? Yes. Which was so awesome to hear, because there's so much of that time where it's like the industry is so much about who you know, but getting to do something like this, I was like, I want it to be that I got it off the talent and that I had the voice that they were looking for this character. And Kevin was like, you are so excited about stuff and you want to learn things, and that's what Andra is, that she's the audience's eyes into everything. And that was what was so cool about doing the animation was Powerhouse. I remember we were in one of our early sessions and we recorded, and because they'd film you while you were recording. And I remember coming into a later session and we were seeing some of the animatics of Andra, and I was like, did you guys just make her do one of the like positions that I've been doing as I'm doing voiceover in the booth? And they were like, yeah.
You're like, I think you have to pay me more for that now.
Damn it, I didn't think of that.
Tiffany Smith.
You gotta think like a con man, like Tim. Of course, that's how you think.
That's right. That's how I got that. That's how I got that Miro voice, by the way.
It's true.
I conned him into
he's got pictures of me somewhere. But I will say, I don't think I've ever said this to my dear friend Tiffany Smith. I'm actually the decider. I'm the decider. Everybody comes to me at the end of the day for this or this.
This is what we tell him, by the way. This is what he honestly just go along with it. Everybody go along with it.
Ego trip. I love it. I did not know Tiffany Smith. I did not know her at all, and I was enchanted by her read. I thought she was incredible, and then I got to meet her. And now we just kind of hang out because we really like each other. But when I first heard her read, I was so blown away by the thoughtfulness, the sensitivity, the strength, all of it. It was everything that I had hoped it would be. And it just it made me trust Kevin and Rob and everybody that much more, because they really understood what story we were telling. And then the people that they cast were the people that really embodied those characters 100%. So Tiffany, you 150 billion% got that because of you and how great you are.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys are watching the chat, but Daniel Collins is in for a treat. Because Daniel Collins enjoyed Revelation, but has yet to watch Revolution, which is a really good show, if I may say so.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think it's maybe a little even better.
He also says, I hope Revelation and Revolution get a physical release. Now, the thing is, you can watch them on Netflix. Is that right, Teddy?
Yes. I mean, they're on Netflix right now. You can watch them.
They're still there.
But if I'm not mistaken, I believe they are getting a physical release on May 13th.
Please stop saying the phrase physical release.
I wasn't going there at all until you just said that, Teddy.
Now, Tiffany, if we were in the same room, absolutely be saying that. We're bad for each other. We definitely.
It's bad.
This is what I will say though. I think that's something that's why the show is as good as it is because we all do genuinely like each other. Like I was just hanging out with Dia and Eric the other day, and Tim and I have plans on Friday. Tim, Friday.
I know. I have jury duty this week. Everything's up in the air.
I don't have plans, Tiffany.
Okay, and Teddy and I hang out, and like
I don't have plans.
We'll trade, we'll swap. But it's like we all actually like each other, and I think as a creative, like you learn that the stuff that there's obviously some stuff where people don't get along, and somehow it still ends up being good. But I think the stuff when it's like people actually enjoy each other's company and they want to make something great together, and they have a passion for the original material, like it just makes magic happen. It's like lightning in a bottle. I feel really lucky from before, and now I have new friends from getting to do this show, which is awesome.
I think that goes to saying about the fact that, everybody that's been involved with the creative process, whether it's writing, whether it's the actors, the producing team, everybody's come up with MotU in their lives. Like, what is that one particular story outside of this project that you've been in that sticks for you? What is your, MotU heart moment?
So
Me?
let me
Tim,
hang on. Let me start by saying that, and Teddy will attest to this, that we grew up in the 80s. There were tons of toys and tons of franchises and brands, and none of my friends had He-Man toys. And it wasn't like I was a Transformers and G.I. Joe kid. Transformers was my number one. G.I. Joe was my number two. And I would secretly watch, because I didn't have any of the toys, I would secretly watch Masters of the Universe. I didn't tell my friends about it because they didn't watch Masters of the Universe. But the other thing that I did was I watched She-Ra, which was a whole other thing that was very complicated for me as a young boy. I was like, but it was a great show, and it's so tied into the other show that to me it made total sense, and I think it does make total sense. But at the time, we were not very evolved, I think, and so I was worried about what people would say. So my exposure was watching the Filmation, cartoons as a kid, and then of course the movie when it came out, which you see we're fans of the movie. Not just because of Gwildor, but there are references in Revelation as well.
Big boy, right?
Big boy. That was me.
Hey, good job.
Tim had originally. Okay, so pulling back the veil. Okay, I'm a real hardcore MotU fan. So asking me my favorite, I know, surprise.
Wait, what are you doing here?
It's kind of crazy, right? Because I can point to specific moments and episodes and things like that. But I also realize that Masters of the Universe has so many different ways in. It's not like Star Wars where there is one unifying canon of storytelling, and that you can come into Star Wars via Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. As the years go by, there become more paths into Star Wars. But for the most part, people come in Star Wars, Empire, Jedi, then the prequels, then everything else, right? So, but MotU had comics, Filmation, toys, the mini comics, the New Adventures, the movie, She-Ra, Secret of the Sword, like all the Golden books, Ladybird books, the UK comics, so many different paths and different canons that everybody has a different connectivity to He-Man and Masters of the Universe, which makes it really hard to build a unifying MotU in 2020, whatever, that gives everybody everything they want, because everybody has a little different something, a different piece that takes them to He-Man. The 2000 series is now 20 some years old, and it's like those are people coming in that have nostalgia for that, and that was the new He-Man for me. So like that's the way you sort of have to position things. But I will say there are so many different avenues that bring something different to this. And Tim Sheridan actually had two characters in that episode that came in at the end that he pulled literally out of thin air. He pulled Goatman and Songster. And he had Songster as a villain. And I said, over my dead body is Songster a villain. I said, when we get to Songster, he will be the balladeer that everybody wants him to be. He will be the Taylor Swift of Eternity.
How'd that work out for you? We could have had Songster if you just let him cross over to the villains.
By the way, to quote Skeletor from the Masters of the Universe 87 movie, everything comes to he who waits. But I said, rather than use Songster, use Pig Boy. And I literally, and they did this beautiful rendering of him. I was so obsessed that we got to use Big Boy, and I was like over my mind, because the actual kid that won, if you know Master Universe, that was a kid that won a contest that got to be in the movie as Pig Boy. And Facebook friends with him, and I was like, the day that we had that dropped, I literally sent him the link. I was like, "You made it,
Yeah.
So
Tiffany, what is that main core moment for you? Being able to get into this franchise as well, and then to expand on it with your comic book now.
Yeah, I mean, I think my sister and I used to watch cartoons together, and then we'd run around and like I don't know if every kid did this, but we would sit before the show would start, and while the like opening was going on, you would get to say, "I'm her," or "I'm him," or "I'm this character," and you didn't do anything while you were watching the show. You just have to like be like, look at me doing that thing on the TV.
I love that.
Oh my God.
Did you guys? Like, I don't know. I thought every kid did this.
No, we did.
We did.
Okay.
So good.
So I remember doing it for He-Man and She-Ra, and so those are like just some really like ingrained young memories of my sister and I sitting and watching it, and then we would run around in our little underoos, and my sister would run around and be like, "I'm He-Man, She-Ra, Wonder Woman, Princess in Power." Like, we would just combine all of the names, and that's the superhero that we were for that day. So it's always been in my like background of my memory. And I mean, the fact that like I can't remember the day I took that class photo, but for whatever reason, I needed my Mermista action figure with me in my class photo. And so that will always be like the iconic memories of the starting out of loving Masters of the Universe and all of this. And I think, it's so cool to get to do the show. I remember watching it excitedly. Like I was like, I'm gonna wait till Saturday morning to watch them when the show first came out, just to kind of give myself like a ritual vibe to it. So getting to watch the show and then having an action figure, and I think so many actors who grow up wanting to be in the industry and work in the genre space, a goal is to have an action figure, and so when I heard Andra was having an action figure, I was like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. So I think I like manifesting things. So like in my mind now I'm like, okay, so I've gotten to do the voiceover, gotten to write her voice, and now I'm like, live action Andra? When are we doing that?
No, but it's like what Teddy said too about like all the different ways in as well. We keep finding our way back in. I think that like the 2000X series, what got me back into MotU after just watching the cartoons when I was a kid wasn't even the 2000X show. It was the Four Horsemen sculpted figures that Mattel put out that I loved. And I was buying all those figures, and that drew me to the show. And that renewed, and that show was great about sort of taking a new look at the lore, adding to it. But really it was the first thing that kind of aged it all up a little bit and gave it a little bit more of the what Teddy asked for when we came in on Revelation, was making the stakes a little bit more Shakespearean for this huge cosmic story that's being told. So yeah, it was really the action figures in the 2000X show that got me back in.
That 2000X show is like, man, that was the right show at the right time, done the right way with the right team. Like it really was a little bit of a lightning in the bottle. The biggest problem with that show was that it was on Cartoon Network, and nobody knew where to find it.
Yeah, but you know what, Teddy, it is one of these stories that I see this all the time with all the different properties I've had a chance to work on. When you're the new thing that's out there of a property that's been around a long time, you'll catch a lot of flack from a lot of people who have a lot of headcanon and want to see it done the way that it lives in their head. And there's no way we can possibly do that. But then when the newest version comes out, and that version is older now, everybody starts to look at it again and sort of see it in a new light. And I think the 2000X series has gotten a lot more attention in recent years. And so I think people are rightfully looking at that show again and realizing, oh, there was a lot of great stuff here.
Well,
and
also,
I think we're going to
nostalgia.
Yeah, that's right. And I think we're going to see, this is my way of pitching that I think in a couple of years, people are going to say that Masters of the Universe, Revelation and Revolution are the greatest, most perfect Masters of the Universe that has ever existed. And no one can ever top it.
I don't have to say that with nostalgia glasses. I can say that absolutely right now.
Yes.
There you go.
See, we came on the right show.
Yeah. Now, I was saying to Tim
Tom, do you take
before,
Venmo?
No, straight cash. In a
You
yellow
gotta go
envelope
through me.
wrapped with a
He doesn't
brick,
have that.
and then you send it. But I can tell. I've told Tim this. When it comes to your guys' show, yes, there are phenomenal shows, but episodes. Every single one of them is standout. I don't think any one is any less than another. But for me, the series finale, or if we're gonna say with little air quotes, because however it
Series
might
finale.
be, the last episode that aired on Netflix, better, is my go-to comfort episode. I go through all the range of emotions and I mean, I go from happy to cry to everything. So if I'm ever having a bad day, I put that on. I knew I was going to have a bad day at work a few weeks ago, early Saturday morning. I woke up at 5:30 in the morning. Nobody's awake. I throw on all the fancy lights and the speakers on my ears, and I'm vibing. I'm just into it.
I love that you love that episode, because Tim and I and Kevin, we exhausted every pun that you could ever think of about uncles. When he's like, "Say uncle, I like my uncles once removed," which Tim
love that
loves
line.
to remind people, is like, that's not a thing.
It's not, but I love the line nonetheless.
It's a great line.
But who knows how that whole removing and this, that, and the other thing goes. Now, speaking of that episode, Tiffany, you finally, Andre, came full circle, and you became Man at Arms. What was that like? When you got that script that first time,
Did you know? Did you know early on, or did you not know until this script?
I did not know. I did not know until we were getting closer to the episode, recording it, and I remember being like, "Oh my God, this is so stinking cool!" And then I was like, "Oh God, are people going to be mad?" I don't care. It's so cool. So it was. I mean, getting to have that character go on that journey, I think the biggest thing for me was that she was constantly looking for family and a place to fit in, and you see it with all these other characters throughout Masters of the Universe that they've created this family. And so for her to be welcomed into it that way and see her value and like what she can do and what she brings to the team was so much fun to get to record. And I just remember recording the first, which I can't remember which one it is, but where she comes in and she lands and she's in the like huge suit and everything. And I was like, this is epic. Like, I think that's where it's like, that's the feeling that Andra has. Like, at that point, it was like, I feel like I deserve to be a part of this team as Tiffany voicing this character, but also as Andra coming in as this character, being the new Man at Arms. And I will say this is what always cracks me up, is that my dad goes, does she have to have a mohawk? Like, and I was like, Dad, it's animated. He was like, I was like, I'm not gonna get a mohawk. And he's like, I mean, okay. And so earlier I was cracking up because I remember there was this moment where I sent him the script that I was working on, and I had put some puns in there that were definitely from the show. And he was like, I mean, it's not my favorite pun that we did in the show. Do you want it in there? And I was like, I like it, yes. So we were talking about that. I was literally cracking up because I was like, I just knowing the conversations that we had, it's so funny coming all
my job when we started working on the show was to bring a little bit of my old Shakespearean training in and try to see if we could elevate some of the dialogue and some of the stakes a little bit, and like I was saying earlier. So, and I am totally punny. Like, I will go for puns all day long. I once got I think it was a big moment. I was working on an animated short with Bruce Timm, and I was sitting across from animation legend Bruce Timm, who MotU
I'm sorry,
pedigree,
hold on. I think you just dropped something. Let me
Bruce Timm.
But it's an important name to drop here in a Masters of the Universe podcast, since that's where he started before he went to Batman the Animated Series. And he read a pun that I wrote and looked at me. It was just me and him in a dark conference room, and he's looking at this script, and he said, he looked through me, and he said, "Did you write that?" And I said, "Yeah." And he just looked at me with this utter disgust and disappointment, and then took his red pen and crossed it out in front of me.
No!
And then we just kept going. And so
Okay, what was the line? Sorry,
I've
Bruce
never
Timm,
told
but what
Teddy
was
that
the
story.
line? We need to know what it is.
Oh, I will not tell you because it's a short that I co-wrote with I'm going to throw some names out again, Ted. Are you ready to catch them? With Walt and Wheezy Simonson, and it was Sergeant Rock, and it featured the Creature Commandos, and it was a whole thing. But anyway, that was my my big working with Bruce Timm. We didn't do much together after that.
I wonder why. What was the pun? Tell me.
No, I'm not even going to tell you. No, I'm not going to tell you. It's going to get me into trouble. I'm not going to say it. So,
well,
then I'm glad he crossed it out.
I will tell you after this.
I will tell you my Bruce Timm story because I'd interviewed him for something for DC All Access, and I remember being at Comic-Con, and like when you're at Comic-Con, it's like late at night after a party, and I'm like walking home, just like enjoying the like vibes of San Diego. Out of the darkness, Bruce Timm, and I'm like, oh my god, oh my
he
god.
is the night.
I was like, hey, I'm Tiffany. I interviewed you for DC All Access stuff. And he was like, I know who you are, Tiffany. Have a great night. And then he just walked away, and I was like, there was no one around me to see it happen, but it will always be in my mind.
Oh my god,
that's terrifying.
And I saw in the chat that do I need a mohawk to do the live action? I will do a mohawk to be in the live action, but it would have to be timeline wise. I don't think she has a mohawk till later, depending on when.
Really, a mohawk. It's kind of a faux hawk.
Like
it's kind of a push up with a clip.
It's a quarter cut with a with a big.
If Anna shaves her head for the show, I would shave my head for the show.
I think we're done shaving women's.
Yeah, no more shaving. No more shaving.
Listen, it worked out really well for Demi Moore. So,
hey, did we ever talk about the BTS on Andra, the creation of that character? Teddy, has that ever been put out there in the world about all the stuff that we kind of were pitching and talking about?
I don't know.
You mean about how I'm awful and a terrible person and a horrible nerd?
I don't know. I don't know if we should talk.
Tell the story you want to tell. And then
no, I don't know if we've ever told it, so I don't want to tell it. It's not.
Tell it. Why not?
Yeah, come on.
But I will say we were originally we had a
play
different
for keeps exclusive.
we originally though we had a different character, and we basically pitched a character at TED. And we were told absolutely not, under no circumstances can this be the character, by the man who's here talking to us right now as a surprise guest.
They wanted to name the character after me, and I was like, "Are you out of your mind?"
We called the character this original character Tedra, and
I was like, "No."
I am so glad that I do not have an action figure named.
Well, let me say this though.
Baby.
But here's the thing. It was a different character entirely. And so what happened was we said, okay, fine, we can't do that. And someone, I think Rob David or somebody said, okay, can we dig back in the lore, the larger canon, and find a character that we can do? Or Teddy told us to do that.
Yeah.
Which was his clever way of getting us to not do Tedra. And then so I went home and I dug through my big MotU character compendium and was just digging through, saying like, who can we elevate? What obscure character who's been around somewhere can we elevate? And I came in with a couple of ideas, but the one that I think immediately everybody wanted to use was Lieutenant Andra.
I think it was in the original email, and I think I still have the email where I literally said, I humbly and gratefully thank you for naming this character after me, but abso-freaking-lutely not. As grateful as I am to be in some way connected to Masters of the Universe, I will not have anything named after me. That is ridiculously egocentrical that I will not have. That's to me, that's an imposition on the IP. That I want.
Right. Which admittedly, it wasn't you. You were going to have to approve it.
Doesn't matter.
You didn't come up with it. I agree. It doesn't matter. But I just want to be clear for the record that it never came from anything you generated. It literally came from Kevin Smith and the writers, and we brought it to you, and you immediately put the kibosh on it.
But I think that when we originally went back, there were a couple contenders for it. One of them was one of the Keks from the mini comics. One of them was Lieutenant Andra from the Star comics, and I was like, "Ooh, Lieutenant Andra! She was in the Academy with Tila. That's a good one." And I was like, and that was the sort of like sparks that came out of that, and
that changed the whole thing. The idea of her being at the Academy was like, that 100%. Was not part of what we were talking about. That kind of dynamic in the relationship, that was great.
But then having someone that Tila could confide in, who knew her as long as she did, who is in essence was sort of just in the tertiary, where watching Tila ascend and do all that. And when Tila had her sort of crisis where she abandoned everything, she went back to her friend who was with her in the Academy, who knew her better, which is what she needed. She needed somebody who knew her as well as she thought she knew Adam. And that's where I think that dynamic really, really served the storytelling. And obviously people were putting their own spin on their relationship and doing all that stuff. And I was like, it's a friendship of people who know each other and know what makes them tick. And that's really what the essence was about.
Now, filling out everything in the lore and, with this franchise that obviously everybody here on screen, it's a beloved, it's part of who we are, it's that third rib down on the left. What was it like being able to really finally play in these storylines and, really focus in on the power of Zor and chaos, and then, have the Tri-Sorceress, and like, what was that like for you, having all of this to just go, hey, here we go, we're going to play with this. And
it's me being a drug addict alone in a pile of cocaine is what it is. It was literally you
hear that, kids? Like you too.
It was like
that is definitely going in one of the after shows of MotU where it's like Marco. And this is like
we're gonna put this up here. We're gonna put our normal ticker up that I usually use for me.
Off the cuff Toms.
It was literally it was like mainlining it. Honestly, that's the stuff that really, really excites me. It's the stuff that Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and all these great myths in literature and cinema had done. They built a world that it revolved around mythology and religion and sort of, whether it's the Jedi or whether it's the wizards in Lord of the Rings. There was an order to their things. And MotU never had it. They always it was a new artifact each week or a new thing that had its own sort of background for it, and then it was forgotten again. And one of the things that we really wanted to do is put a little bit of order around the chaos. It's actually what Revelation is all about. It's about the conflict between order and chaos. Where does the line really matter, right? And we started talking about who gets their powers from where. How does it fall? Why does Skeletor want this particular power? Why does this power flow through the sorceress? What does it mean for He-Man to have that power? When he says, I have it, does that mean it's absolute? Does that mean there's none left for everybody else? When Evil Lyn and Skeletor steal the power, what does that mean? Is it we broke it all down. There is real, like, we got the receipts, like that there is a written down for all that stuff.
So you have like a murder board of going from Big Jim all the way down to the powers.
yes we do. We have literally started with Big Jim.
Watch Teddy right now as he's talking about this, and you see what this was in so many ways. I think for everybody was this elevated, this sort of grown-up version of playing with the toys that, where we got to take everything that we've learned as adults and bring it to the process of just mashing the toys together and playing and seeing what happens. And, and so that was I think I loved getting to do that with this group of people, because these are people who know how to play with the toys and have a great time. I've worked on so many things where, you're playing with the toys and there's varying degrees of how dedicated people are to the characters or the mythology or what have you. But you still make, you have your fun and you make the fun, happen. But there's something about getting to do it with people like Teddy and Rob and Kevin and everybody and Tiffany. It just feels like you're playing toys with your friends.
We're still playing with
know?
toys. Yeah. And I think one of the real joys was, you know, we knew that there were so many different entry points, mini comics, Star Comics, movie, all of that stuff. And we took the stuff that we wanted. Like, honestly, I can justify every choice we made as something originating from a previous version of Masters of the Universe. We may have adjusted it so that it fit our narrative, but it originated from something Larry DiTillio created, something that, you know, Don Glutt created, something, you know, that any of the big MotU creators, Mark Taylor, all the way back, like, we pulled in real roots of MotU. And then, like, even things that, like, we put a new spin on, like the three gods, Ka and Havoc and Zor, right? So in the mythology, Teela, the original Teela, came with something called the Staff of Ka.
Yep.
We had no idea what the hell that was, but that's what it was called. And we knew that Skeletor came with the Havoc staff. Well, the Sorceress toy, the toy came with a staff that had Zor on it. It was never mentioned. It was never called the Staff of Zor. And we were like, huh, those are the three sort of like the big, you know, entities in our world. What if those are like the old gods that like built up the sort of the world and mythology? And then you bring in people like Shane and all the team at Powerhouse, who, you know, Patrick, who can write freaking languages and like pull all this stuff together. And you have this great think tank of people who respect mythology, respect Masters of the Universe lore, and then are trying to craft something born of all of those ideas into something new. They tried doing something like this with the classics on the bios, which took like everything from everything and then tried to like fit it together. We got rid of stuff we didn't want, and we used stuff that we did, but it all came from something that was generated by the MotU, you know, gods.
But we didn't have to. That was the thing.
Yeah.
Nobody told us we had to. The way we went into that was we got to. We had all of this stuff available to us. Why wouldn't we go back in the lore and make those connections and make those? I think that's when you're revisiting something, just sort of living in nostalgia doesn't, I don't think, really add anything new. But if you take all that stuff, all that lore, all of that canon that exists, and find ways to tie threads to everything and make it all connect in some way, and it ends up adding something new. Even if it's just a matter of perspective, you're adding something new to the canon, and people it's not selfish. You know,
people thought we came up with the idea that Castle Grayskull was really the Hall of Wisdom disguised. Right. We didn't come up with that. That was from the Kids Stuff album that I had as a kid, with the book that was right out of there. And that was the only place that I've ever remember that concept, that Grayskull was, that the elders disguised the Hall of Wisdom as like a scarecrow to scare away people by putting it under the guise of this horrific castle, which I'm like, that looks like Skeletor. That should be his castle. But anyway, but the idea, like, oh, that's a really cool idea. Let's draw that. Let's draw from that and into our show. And it was, people were like, hey, that's a really cool idea. I'm like, I can't take credit for that. That was from, you know, the Kids Stuff album that I have. And Kids Stuff is a brand, by the way. I'm not calling the album Kids Stuff.
Yeah.
That's part of when you get to do the voices in something that you grew up with and have such a reverence for. It's like, I knew how important and how special it was to all of the writers and all of the producers and everybody on board. So it made it that much easier for me to come in and be like, I'm going to trust where they're going with this. I may not get to read all of the episodes, but I know that it's in good hands. And it took a lot of pressure off me, to be honest, that then writing the comic book came back tenfold, because I was like, oh, I don't have the whole team writing it with me. But then also I knew I had the team who was like welcome to reread the scripts. And then also it was going to go to Mattel and through Dark Horse. So everybody kind of got to, you know, go through it all with a fine tooth comb, making sure that I didn't take something way off the rails. But it's definitely like, there is a pressure when it's something that you're a fan of, you know, you want to do right by all the fans and yourself as a fan. but also as a creative, you want to be able to sprinkle some of your magic on there too, and hope that everyone is as excited about it as you are creating it.
I just get excited to add, like, give things names that didn't have names before, like the Orlax of Primaria, you know.
This is, by the way,
Spring
this is a gift that I made for my friend Tim Sheridan that I have yet to give him. I 3D printed an Orlax of Primaria for him. From
in the comic book colors.
In the comic book colors, from the amazing 3D sculptor, Lovely Evil Horde. And I'm like, okay, this is for Tim. I'll print one up for me at some point, but that one's for you.
Oh my God.
I think he needs a bigger shelf.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, speaking of the comics and everything, you know, and I have obviously my famous, you know, one freer from Revolution that Tim. This is the only book I ever had that's signed to my actual fun name
to
here
off
on
the cuff Tom.
To off the cuff Tom specifically, because Tim holds very high regard in my books. Speaking of the books, and again, how the last aired episode, as I'm going to call it, has this big, huge teaser at the end. You happen to do this particular cover. So, how big are those freaking breadcrumbs?
Put that back up.
Whole loaves out there. Put that back up.
I want to see that. I want to see who we have in here now. I think that last one on the bottom corner is the best.
Yeah.
Who, Skeletine or Prince Adam?
Prince Adam. I mean, Skeletine's great too. Don't get me wrong.
Skeletine's awesome. Yeah. You know, to get Gray to come in to do that all of 30 seconds of dialogue. I mean, whose idea was that?
That was Rob's idea. Rob obviously created Despara. That is
the DC comics.
We had known how we wanted to end Revelation or Revolution rather. And there were 3 different endings, right? And I'll tell you, to be honest, the runtime was getting really long, and it was very expensive. And everybody was like, "We're probably gonna have to cut one of these endings." And I was a lunatic. I was like, "You can't cut any of them."
Find the money, toy sale, something.
I was like,
we had a bake sale in the Netflix parking lot.
I was like, you can't cut Eva Lynn's ending. She was the driver of the entire arc. You can't cut the Hordak ending because then they'll think we killed Hordak for good and they'll hate us forever. Like, and you can't cut the ending with Teela and He-Man because it's their show. We were like, we can't cut any of them. Sorry. None. So to Powerhouse's credit, they were able to get all of the endings in time, on budget, and it was truly a Herculean feat. But the ending with Hordak, we had known what we wanted to do with the ending. We wanted to leave that breadcrumb. Look, we know where our show takes place in canon. We know, we've always said that our show is episode 130, Revelation starts 131, which means that is after all of He-Man. It is after all of She-Ra. So there is a plan for the future, if we are able to do a future.
Oh. Tom is just leaning in closer and closer.
That's all I'm going to say about that.
I will lean in too, Tom.
We know everything we want to do. We have it all ready to go. There's
Ted, watch it.
There's a lot of things that we have to wait for in order to happen.
Careful.
That's all. That's all.
But also, there are many ways to tell a story. Says the guy who works in, animation and comics,
like shadow puppets,
movies.
Shadow puppets are the new
shadow puppets. I've done shadow puppets.
Service. Shadow Puppets Plus.
Yeah.
How do I do Andre's shadow puppet mohawk?
Takes 2 actors.
Okay, that works. Oh, so like
we could just come on your show and tell the story.
Yeah,
that's another way to do it.
It is.
I don't know. We have to run that one by Rob first.
We got to run it by Mattel.
Really?
Yeah.
We'll scratch the serial numbers off. Nobody will know. It's fine.
Yeah. So this is B-Man and the sometimes of the galaxy. Yeah.
And Tedra.
Tedra. Guy at arms, Tedra.
I love Resurrection Tedra.
Vicky, what else we got for this evening? Anything?
I don't know, man. No, I'm good.
Oh, you
I'm
did
having
get a
great
pickup
time.
this week. Did anybody? So one thing we do here on Play for Keeps, guys, is we do pickups of the week. So has anybody now? I know Teddy. You've got this whole massive collection background, and obviously Tim, we know what your pickup is because Teddy just printed it for you. Mickey,
That's
what
right.
pickup do you have this week?
All right, I guess I'll show it off.
Yeah, why not?
I got it ready.
Oh, you got the new Technodrome.
Yeah.
Nice.
Which is a nice segue because we're doing a whole April O'Neil month of Ninja Turtles next month.
That's right.
Smart.
That's
Smart.
my number 2. It goes He-Man, Ninja Turtle.
What's going on? What's happening?
No.
What's happening?
I got very excited.
So.
Oh wait. Oh, here we go.
Oh,
There's all my Ninja Turtles over here.
My
There's
goodness.
He-Man.
Well, see, here's
And
the
then,
funny thing. What you guys don't realize is that Teddy and I both be in Philadelphia, and we're like two cousins half removed. So I got a place to crash when I'm out in LA now.
There's my movie collection up there. Anyway.
Whatever you do, Tom, don't crash in that room. The crashing is not what you don't want.
No.
I had that issue this week. My one of my shelves, my Star Wars gaming collection shelf went.
Oh.
So the whole Republic Commandos, Revan, all of them. Oh, Tim's got one.
Right before I logged in to do this show, Gwildor fell forward, knocking Moss Man down.
Oh no.
My Tilas all started to go. I jumped up. I'm blocking them all with my body. I'm yelling to my husband in the other room. I'm like, Brian, come and help me. He comes in and he's helping kind of put things back. Anyway, it was a miracle that we managed to get everything back where it needed to go.
That's crazy.
Speaking
Tiffany,
of
do you have a
crashes.
large collection yourself? You've been doing this for so long, whether you've had all your experience as a presenter with AOTS and DC. Like, where's your nerd room? What do you got all hiding in there?
So it's in my living room right now, the other corner, but it's a disaster mess area right now. But I've like pared mine down quite a bit during the pandemic. Being home in my space, I was like, okay, I don't need 7 different Zatannas.
Yes, you
Yes,
do.
you
You're
do.
trying to
You.
manifest it. You're trying to be a Zatanna, and we still want to see that. So no. You need
Yes.
as many, and then you make the
I
little
just
star
I
and the
have
circle, and
the best couple that like look the most like me. I catch.
I just think
Did you
that is
keep the
the
George
perfect
Perez
casting.
one with the red snake and the long hair and the blue outfit with the thigh
That
high
is the
boots?
perfect casting is Tiffany Smith as Zatanna.
Yes.
It
Listen,
works
I've
perfectly.
taken classes at the Magic Castle. There's a chance that maybe that'll be my next comic. We'll see.
Hey.
But yeah, so I've definitely pared it down quite a bit. The last thing I'm trying to think what the last thing I bought was. I think the last thing I got was when I went to do a tour at Sideshow, and I mean I didn't buy it, but I got a really awesome
that's okay.
Zatanna painting. So I like to like cycle my things in and out, where it's like I built the Castle Grayskull from Mega Blocks. And one of my friends has kids, and so I built it. That was my fun part. And then I was like, here, he can go take it and actually play with it. Because I don't like, I have 2 Andras, so this one's in the box, the other one's like out on my bookshelf. Because I'm not very good at like keeping things in boxes. I like to actually like play with them and stuff. But
Let them breathe.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
By the way, yes, I did get. I do have that lovely Orlax waiting for me, which is incredible. But also, I was very excited this week to run into a Marge and Maggie from the new Jack's Pacific Simpsons line, which they're so difficult to find these figures wherever I can't find them. So I was thrilled to pick that up this week. It's in the other room though. So.
I got.
I will make sure to add this to my
Yeah,
network.
wait, I'm getting my on. Oh,
The
Jeff!
Loyal Subjects Gem. It's truly outrageous.
Truly outrageous.
Whoa, gem. But yeah, Tim, I'll put you on my network of people because I have a whole network across the country, and we keep an eye out for figures for each other.
Oh my gosh, yes, please.
Oh,
Jack's 2.5 inch
Tom.
and 5 inch. Oh, look at this.
This is what I got from Slideshow.
Ooh, love it.
Oh.
Tom, I'll hit you up too, because there's I literally my red shadow just got canceled from Walmart, and I still don't have a Zodak from the new vintage Masterverse vintage collection. So I'm like,
shame you don't know anybody at Mattel.
Right?
No.
I got this guy too. He just came hero.
Nice.
I have literally a ton of stuff just all around me.
Did you literally just
I
tell
mean-
everybody in here who that was?
Just in case.
Yeah.
I told
shout
everybody
out to-
online who that is.
To Daniel for super chat. It's thank you so very much. Yeah, that's very kind of you, Daniel. So we're gonna have that up there. But unfortunately, it's getting about that time, and some of us are on East Coast time, some of us are West Coast time. So we definitely want to make sure to say, first and foremost, thank you so very much to all of our guests on here, Mr. Tim Sheridan, Ted Biaselli, Tiffany Smith, for taking the time out to talk about Masters of the Universe. It is now near the end of Masters of the Universe March Madness, and Mickey has been doing his hard work covering and doing everything. So, Mickey, what do we got here for the brackets and the Orco Oops? Like, we didn't even do an Oops today, did we?
Did we not? No, we did not.
No, we did not.
That's okay. There's 4 Orco Oops. I'll make a post after the show to you send me those and we'll enter you in our giveaway. I will bring that up right here, where we'll get 2 trade paperbacks, one by Mr. Tim Sheridan there, 40th anniversary He-Man, and a special
And Teddy
Funko
Biaselli.
Pop. That's right.
They got cut off. Sorry.
And our March Madness brackets came down to the 2 we figured it would. I should have known it was going to happen, but we've got the Masters of the Universe He-Man versus 2000X Skeletor. So that's a pretty cool matchup. We'll leave that up for the week, and we'll announce the winner on our first April TMNT show.
My money's on Skeletor. Sorry.
Same.
Agreed.
I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know.
Well, thank you all so very much again. It is an absolute pleasure. And, you know, whether it's by the power of Grayskull or for the honor of Grayskull, make sure that when you play
for keeps.
I'm